West 940 North in Provo, Utah. We're going to begin our study session today with a roll call, and we'll start with Devin.
Devin Daly, Business Administrator.
The Boyce, Board Member.
Terry McCabe, Board Member.
Jennifer Partridge, Board Vice President.
Rebecca Nielsen, Board President.
Wendy Dow, Superintendent.
Meg Van Wagen, Board Member.
Gina Hales, Board Member.
Melanie Hall, Board Member.
And we have our two student board members that don't have a microphone. You want to yell? Thank you so much. Okay, and welcome to everyone else who's here with us. Is there a motion to convene our study session?
I move that we convene our study session.
Thank you so much. Motion made by Board Member Boyce. Is there a second?
I second.
And by Board Member Hales. We are now in our study session. We're going to begin today with a board handbook training given by Board Member Gina Hales.
All right, this should be pretty quick. We have a slideshow.
Yes.
All right, so we're just going to be really fast. These ones are about, go to the next one. Two parts. One is board member reports. Go ahead, go to the next one. This has really changed quite a bit. When I first came on, I have to admit I didn't read the handbook as quickly as I should have, and I went off of another board member's reports, which were like 30 minutes long and had a slideshow. So this is what we do now is much better. So if you go to the, so this is what it says in the handbook, and if you go to the next slide, I've kind of updated it. So generally speaking, instead of having one board member present what they've been doing, it's all board members are invited to provide a report on a monthly basis during the first business meeting of the month. So on the usually it's on the second Tuesday of the month, and it's monthly instead of once or twice a year because we all are participating. We call it, is it the round table? Round table. And so we get to just each report on the things that we're doing. I think the rest still kind of applies. We want them to be fairly short. So calendaring of board meetings. Want to go to the next one? Basically, we have meetings on the second and the fourth Tuesdays of the month. I have noted the changes here as well. So this is held on the second and fourth Tuesdays. And then monthly, we have a business meeting on the second Tuesday evening, which hasn't changed. And then we used to have only a study session where there was no voting on business that occurred, but we've had so many, it's been awesome with our new superintendent getting down to business and getting everything done that needs to be done, as well as maybe not so awesome that the legislature keeps giving us lots of things to change our policies. So we're always voting on policy, at least for now. And so we have turned these into also business meetings on the fourth Tuesdays. They used to be in the morning, but that got kind of hard for a variety of reasons. So now we do them in the evenings as well. And then there's a whole part where it goes through January, February, it goes through all the months. So I just kind of summarized in green. It's the second and fourth Tuesdays. There are some exceptions, which is April for spring break, July for summer break, November for elections and Thanksgiving, December's winter break, and then we have all-day meetings, and I believe is it September or October, and then in March. I think that's basically when we do it. So that's it.
Thank you so much. And Melanie and I are about to start working on the revision of the board handbook. So thank you for reporting on what we have and what we're practicing, and we will get that updated. So thank you so much. Okay. Item E in our study session agenda is the presentation of the strategic plan draft. Go ahead, Wendy.
Bonnie, do you want to pull up the actual copy of it, or do you want me to do it? Okay, that's okay. I mean, they all have it, but I thought it might be helpful. So I thought what I would start with is Lisa did a great job of going through and starting to delineate some questions that I wanted to address, but I actually just thought maybe we just go through this page by page, and then if you have specific comments or if there's specific formatting or something that needs to happen, we could just add those comments into that. Jennifer, Rebecca, and I kind of went through it initially because the whole thing was blue, and so we tried to add some different colors and that type of thing. And all of the pictures are from our school district. They were all provided by Caleb and Shauna. And when you print it, it doesn't look like the right colors, but online, it is the right colors. We had Shauna double check to make sure that everything was okay. So the way it's laid out is that this page would be the cover page. Maybe I should stand in front of you. I don't know if that will work better. Is that, I don't know.
If you want to, you can, or whatever works for you.
That's fine. So, and then each page is like, it opens and it's supposed to be, so like when you're,
Page spread.
oh, yes.
it's a book.
It's a book, so that you can kind of see this as it rolls out, so that hopefully that will make more sense to you. So thank you to Rebecca for putting in a letter. We talked about that most of the strategic plans have a letter in there, and I thought it was awesome. So thanks, Rebecca, for doing that. And then we do the table of contents, and then the next piece was the mission, vision, and core values. So I just wanted you to look at that. I did ask them to change it was originally all blue under core values, and they changed all of it to green. And so I don't know if you want the value in green and then see, I knew you were going to have a comment, so go.
I got it. Are we on, is that the page we're on?
Yes, let's do that.
On the
So
core
that'll be
values
page
page.
2, values
Okay,
page.
So I still hate that welcome, educate, and inspire is very, very small. It needs to be big, and it needs to be bold, and it needs to be the first place your eye is drawn to when you open that page, right? Because if someone is going to take a split second on each page, we need them to get the most out of each page, right? And that's the one thing I'm going to want someone to get out of that page if they're going to take a literal half second to glance over it. So like right now, the word mission is bigger and bolder than than welcome, educate, inspire. So I feel like they need to be bigger, bolder, I don't know, stacked, whatever, but I don't love the arrow thing underneath. I think it's pointless and it's weird.
I don't like the arrow thing because it's also going down.
Yes. I'm like,
And
at least
inspire
go
really
up.
should be the most
We
important
should
thing.
be going, if
Okay.
you're going to have an arrow, it should be going upwards.
Like this?
Right. Yes.
Or just get rid of the arrow and
Dude,
list
get rid of
for
the
us.
arrow. But I mean, honestly, right? Boom, that should be the first thing your eye sees. These are my opinions, obviously. So take them for what it's worth. Also, on the core values, like you're talking about, everything in green doesn't help the actual core values stand out from the definitions. So I'm fine keeping those definitions green if we want to change, I apologize, the core
Blue.
values in green if we want to change those definitions back to blue. But they need to somehow stand out as well, because if someone gives this page 3 seconds, right, then we want them to get welcome, educate, inspire, and then we want them to get those 5 core values.
And
Right. So anyways,
I would still make those bigger.
And I-
Belonging, creativity.
yeah,
Those words should be larger.
agree. So this page is so underwhelming to me. And it needs to be the one page everyone spends the most time on, in my opinion. So
I'm furiously writing notes. Okay.
I think. Anybody else have any thoughts on that page?
I had a question. So we had talked previously about what order we put our core values in. And if we want them to kind of align in the order, welcome, educate, inspire, they would be in a certain order. This is not that order. Do we care that it lines up?
Remind me the order. I
Yes.
remember
So
this.
the order is belonging, community, growth, creativity, empowerment.
Because it went with each thing, like you welcome.
Welcome
goes with belonging.
I understand why we put community last, in a way that makes sense, but if we're lining them up with the welcome, educate, inspire. So I don't know how I feel about that, so I'm wondering how you guys feel.
I'm fine either way.
Oh, I hate that answer.
Honestly,
I agree.
I would rather have
Move
them
it around.
align personally, but
Okay.
And I think community at top's nice because that is like a foundation of establishing that community base to build things on. I think that.
Do you want to put community before belonging?
No.
No, okay.
Because that's the beginning.
Okay.
So it would be belonging, community,
creativity, growth, empowerment.
okay.
Or growth,
I like that
creativity,
order a
whichever.
lot.
Yeah, I like that.
You like growth and creativity better? Okay.
I personally like growth first, but I guess it doesn't matter.
I like the little infographics.
I prefer.
I
You like
love
the
those.
infographics?
Those
Yeah,
are
the
great.
little
Yeah.
graphics are great.
Well, that also created a lot of stress. Oh, but we got it.
No, it was, they're really
graphics
good.
did?
Yeah. Okay. Are we done with page 2?
Well, someone's still got a lot of work to do on it, but yes, I
Yes,
think
I
we're done.
mean, done with the feedback for page 2. All right, let's go to page 3. This is my letter and the planning process, which just kind of how we ended up here.
I have one comment just on the actual text in the planning process. There's a couple sentences that say the exact same things back to back. So it says district staff and community, or, we met monthly with these people to develop the district strategic plan. And then
To
the
develop
next
the plan.
one says to develop the plan we completed and these. So there's two develop plans literally right in a row, and someone needs to
We'll fix that.
wordsmith that better.
We had, I was trying to remember her name, and then I was going to call her the wrong name. So Aurora Laura was the one that wrote that up for us, so I'll fix
Okay.
that part.
I didn't come with a suggestion on how to fix
No,
it, which
I'll
is
fix it.
terrible.
I'll fix
But
it.
I
And
saw
you
it and I
could
was
say
like,
something
someone needs
like-
to do that.
In this process, we completed as
Yeah.
part of the process. I mean, I just feel like
There's a million options.
It's
Yeah.
completed, it needs assessment.
Can I just say that I'm thrilled that we're using our own photos, so thank you. Like, I noticed that and I was like, I love it, so thank you.
Well,
And I love that Wendy's face
I
is
don't-
right front and
I
center.
really don't like that
I love
photo
it.
was there, but that was her choice. Okay.
I like it.
Page 4, this was.
Wait, sorry, can we go
Yeah.
back to the photo?
Yeah.
I do want to say that the student doesn't look all sorts of happy.
I did.
But I feel like this
did
is
notice
reality.
True. And it's a side view of you, which is totally fine, but
No, it
you're
makes me look
gorgeous
old, I
from the
get it.
front view too. Like, it's just not the greatest picture, I don't know. I did think that to myself, so.
Pick a better
I
picture.
like that it looks like she's interacting with.
You are interacting, yes.
That was what she was going for.
Okay.
There's a really cute picture, I think, with me of kneeling next to a little kid, and it's a front view. Okay, we'll do that.
But I will say, I really like that this was a secondary kid, because I think we tend to default
it's
to our
elementary.
elementary kids, so I don't know where we want to, just something I want to put out there. I noticed that there were some secondary later on, which I appreciated.
We do have I was going to say, we do have secondary in some pretty prominent places, though, so
It's like
there is a balance.
Yeah, down here.
New photo.
And Monica and Hutch, if you guys have input, just jump in. It's just study session. We're
Yeah.
pretty informal, even though we're in our formal
Yeah, it
setting
feels,
right now. but
makes
yeah.
it weird, but.
Just grab that mic.
Page 4. So this was actually a graphic that our MTSS team had kind of come up with. It was really, I think, if I remember right, Michelle Eldridge kind of was trying to create a representation of what we were talking about. We had originally just had 2 arrows with family and community engagement on one side and opportunities for all on the other. I explained that I wanted people to understand that it was encompassing all 3 of those,
Yeah.
and that we wanted to list those as the priorities, because otherwise people were like, what are these 3 weird circles and what is happening there? So I think they actually did a better job of encompassing that, and I actually really do like the photo, but you're always welcome to disagree and to tell me what to do differently. Here we go.
I mean, that's the end result we want for our kids, is to graduate. So I do like that picture.
I do too.
Actually, I like this way better than what
I
they
really
had
love
before.
this page.
I think I don't have any complaints here.
Anybody else?
No, I like it.
Did you guys like it?
Fantastic.
Okay, here we go, priority 1. So we have color coordinated all of these. So priority 1, you'll notice, is blue, priority 2 is orange, priority 3 is green, and we tried to match that up with the colors on the paper so everything is aligning. So the way it will look then is when you open it, it'll look like this.
Like your blue.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
that
nice.
That's
makes
going to be the
sense.
blue page and the model.
So there'll be a blue page, an orange page, green page, so on and so forth. So,
Which, really quickly, going back to page 2, I think
Yeah.
maybe we could incorporate a little bit of orange.
Yes.
Not a lot, but just, it would actually make it a little bit more fun to look at and be more cohesive, I think.
Page 2 or 3?
2.
Well, 2, but it's page 3
The
on
core
your
values,
PDF.
mission, and vision.
Page 2 on the bottom for the,
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Looks so nice, I think.
the orange was, Jason can attest to this, the very first draft that we saw was overwhelmingly orange. And I was like, this is a very angry document. And so we went back and tried to tell them that blue is our primary color as a district, and then we accent with green and orange, which is what they tried to do, and then it became too blue, and anyway.
Right, so
we
just
will-
as an
We'll
accent,
do
I
it.
don't
Oh, we
think it
got
needs
it,
to
we got it. Oh, we'll do it. Okay, so pages 5 and 6, this is, Lisa, you had some questions about the
Yeah.
KPIs in particular.
Yeah, I was just kind of doing a check for the various places where we have set recently and communicated about goals around achievement and growth. And so my first thought was around, are those aligned in a way where we're going to succeed with them? So when I read through our school improvement plans, we have quite a few school improvement plans where we couldn't be this aggressive, apparently, as those were being presented to us. And there were, I thought, good reasons that for why some of them were hoping to grow 1% or even stay and not lose, have a learning loss. And so that makes me think, but I know this is an average of all of our schools, right? So I guess I just wanted to check that and see what your thoughts were about the 5% per year averaged across all of our schools. And the other thing that came to mind was just in our last meeting when we were talking about our early learning plan submitted to the state, our math goal was to not lose from the beginning of the year to the end of the year proficiency. And that's because that's actually a growth goal from where we've been in the past with those grades. Right? And so I understood that even though I didn't feel great when I first saw it, I understood like in context that actually it is an aggressive, good goal to step us on this path forward. So all of that was in my head, and I wanted to ask you to kind of address what you feel in terms of how realistic this is, and can we really say then we are going to commit our resources for this? We're going to make this happen, and it might take extra resources, and we might have to pull them from all sorts of other good ideas that aren't the best because we are committed to seeing this kind of academic growth and proficiency.
I think you bring up a really important point on many different levels. So one level is when we looked at our school improvement plans, we didn't have all of this data and this to help guide them in their process. So this now will become their guiding document as they create their school improvement plans and start looking at that data beginning in November. So I absolutely agree with you that I'm not sure that our school improvement plans currently are aligning with this. We actually sat in our MTSS meeting today, and our research and assessment director said, what's the data that really matter to us as a district? We need to clearly define that, right? I think the other point that comes up that you're bringing up is I start to hesitate a little bit because the state seems to often want to change its assessment. Yeah. And there's already some talk about how that's going to change, and so we're still dealing with these moving targets. And I think that's where our teachers get really frustrated is that, well, why are we putting so much weight on this when it feels like it keeps changing and the assessment itself is very difficult to measure comparatively from one year to the next. And I think where we landed as an MTSS is this is our accountability data as a district. And so as a result, because we're judged based on this by the state, then this is probably our best bet in terms of what we need to utilize across the district. Is 3% in each subject area a lot per year? I'm not a statistician, so I would say yes, that is as a former principal, that's a pretty ambitious goal in some cases. But I also, I was just looking at Spring Creek Elementary's data, for example, and I just pulled up their 2024 science data, and they improved by 6% over the course of 1 year. So I just think maybe it hasn't been front and center. And so us talking about it, and then if we have to come back and say, we need to adapt this a little bit, I do feel like maybe this is a living document, and maybe we could take that into account, but I really would like us to be ambitious.
I do too.
I really would like us to set the standard high. If we're going to be a destination district, we have to show that our academics, this is our number one priority as a district, and we really got to step up.
And so that would be my Is this RISE end of year data?
So this would be RISE for
Fourth, fifth, and sixth.
4th through 8th, and then it would be Aspire 9th and 10th.
Okay.
Would be the data that we would be utilizing there. And then the post-secondary guidelines, so if we want to make this more 4th through 8th rise and focus on the post-secondary more for our high school data, we could certainly delineate that. Because now they're talking about changing Aspire and what that's going to look like, because it doesn't actually test grade level standards. I just want you to know that. It's testing how well they're moving towards preparing for the ACT, which is a little bit more complicated. So we could make that distinction if we wanted to. My concern is if the state doesn't change the Aspire testing, then we start to think that we don't have any accountability measures except these more exit types of strategies, which I don't love, but.
So sorry to ask one more
Please.
question, but then in this data, when we look at like year 2023, 45% language arts, that's 45%, that represents 4th through the Aspire testing.
4th through 10th grade.
Which is tricky because we're taking two different measures, but it's still, what percent are hitting
Proficiency.
Proficiency. Okay, because I was going to say it's not grade level on the Aspire.
Correct.
But is there a proficiency metric? Okay, thank you.
Bet. Other questions?
I did so on the right, it says KPI baseline student performance 2023. And you were just saying that it's the specific grades and the specific tests. Should we put that right there? Is that?
Oh, yeah,
I
we
think
can
that's a
totally
great
do
idea.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Exactly which grades are being tested.
Great idea,
and which
Terry.
tests we're using,
Yep.
because otherwise it's pretty vague.
Yep, I so agree. Thank you.
And when you just clarified proficiency, I think that could be helpful to have
Okay.
that as well.
Right.
We're in the proficiency.
Student
not the growth.
proficiency
Instead of growth,
data,
yeah.
RISE testing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Anything else on these?
So I'm all for more clarity. I am a little worried that, is that going to make it so there's too much to read and people aren't going to read it? So is that something we just need to look at once it's done and then we can decide that? But I think more information is always great, but it's also sometimes off-putting for people who aren't data junkies.
I know, I think though that's why the previous pages
Yeah.
are for people who want just a quick glance. I think for me, because sometimes percentages are hard, I'm like, I just see the percentages and I'm already like, oh gosh, I got to dig deep into this. So having more information, I think it'd actually be helpful, because I'm kind of, I just zone out. So I think those that are going here and digging, I think they want
I agree.
more clarity.
And this is the brochure and not like a
Yeah.
postcard.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because,
It's meant to have more detail.
right.
Not crazy amounts of detail, but it's meant to have more.
If it's going to be a guiding
Room there,
document,
too.
I do think just in the KPIs, being, or at least directing someone to where they can know what that means, though, is important. Because if it just says baseline data, for example, later we'll encounter that, I'm like,
What data?
what kind of baseline data, Or who do I ask at least if I want to know what that is?
Yeah.
I don't know. So.
Looking at this again, I realize we use the word proficiency in the goal itself, increase the percentage of students achieving proficiency. So I guess we don't have to add it in on the KPI side because we clarified that it's proficiency
Yeah.
on the goal side.
But we should probably put grade levels and what tests. That would be
Yeah, yeah.
helpful,
Yeah,
because
I think
we do get, Jared in particular gets a lot of feedback about, are we focusing more on Acadians? Are we focusing more on RISE testing? And we're trying to align things with the school accountability report from the state, so.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions or suggestions on priority 1? And by the way, if you think of something else after this session, please make sure you just add it to that document or call me or something, because I'll send this off and we'll definitely still have some more time.
Can I go, I'm sorry.
Please.
Can we go back to page 5 or 4, whatever, the one with the graphic that has the 3 priorities?
Uh-huh.
it kind of bothers me that it goes from 1 to 3 is on the left and 2 is on the right.
Oh, you want it switched.
Switch 2
You got
and
it.
3 because.
You read left to right.
And you do a triangle.
Arrow.
The arrow.
It was the arrow.
The arrows, yeah, and that's clockwise.
But I thought the same
Yeah.
thing, Terry. I was conflicted.
Did you?
Because to me, it's more of a triangle with the 3 priorities. And when you draw a triangle, you always go
Everyone's brains work differently.
Do you?
1,
Because
2,
I
And
always
then,
go
and
to
then
the
the circle is encompassing. Yeah.
See, and Terry, I see it differently. I see it as a circle.
Yeah, and I don't
Yeah.
even see the circle, so.
I love this.
That's
I would
interesting.
go 1, 2,
Students,
3.
how would you read that one? Do you like it priority 1, priority 2, priority 3? Are you seeing it as a circle? Do you like it as a triangle? I would love to hear your feedback.
If you're doing the circle, like going with that approach, maybe making the arrows that connect the circle a bit more like definitive,
Okay.
just so that people realize like that's the direction the circle goes.
Oh, good point.
But like
Okay.
as a triangle, I think that's all right.
I feel like at first glance I didn't notice that there was arrows. So when you guys were saying that, I thought it was like the head of an arrow that you guys were making. I didn't really see that at first. And I also saw it as a triangle. So in my mind, I thought it would be 1, 2, and then 3.
Team Terry.
All right. I feel like we're split, so I just need someone to make a
I
decision.
lean more
Touch is right.
towards the
The
triangle.
arrows
That's what
in
your
the
eyes
circle
go
needs
to.
to be better if you want it to be a circle.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I see the
Okay.
triangle.
You want me to make the circle more pronounced?
Yeah.
Do I have like a
I-
weird brain? Does my
yeah.
brain read everything opposite of all of you? That's so funny because like it made sense to me. But
No, it made sense to me.
It did. Okay.
I didn't.
Did.
Yeah, I didn't. Think
I
much
wonder if
about
it's just, is there like anybody have any like psychological expertise on marketing, like where eyes
Ooh,
read
Shauna.
first on?
Can
That's
default to our
Shauna.
communications team.
How about I have them mock up 2 different versions of it, and then you tell me which one you
We could
want.
take an official vote in one of the meetings, that'd be
No,
awesome.
but actually, Shauna, is there like a way people typically will read? Is it like an E shape or something like that?
So then
You're
2
saying
would be
this
the
is-
bottom left.
So that it's correct the way it's done.
Okay.
Did
I-
you do this, Shauna?
No,
No,
but
you
she
didn't.
can.
Okay, okay.
Can I ask one more question of our student board members? You guys, if you look on the academic achievement page with the 2 goals and the KPIs, it's page 6 in the brochure and 7 if you're looking at the thing on the left. That bottom goal is about secondary ed, and we're looking at increasing the percentage of students who meet college and career readiness benchmarks, which we define as the ACT, scoring at least an 18 on that, our graduation rate, and advanced courses. I actually thought we were counting CTE.
CTE is counted in advanced coursework. So
Oh, I
advanced
see. Okay,
coursework
yeah.
includes CTE,
So-
AP, and CE.
CE. Okay, so when you look at that and then you look over at what those strategies are, like, do those seem like, does that give you enough information to kind of help you think about what do we need to be doing to help more of our high school students, for example, find motivation to enroll in some kind of CTE or current enrollment or AP classes? What support do they need and how early, or do you know, I'm just curious to know their view on this. Like, are we thinking about something? Are we missing something that would help with this goal? Because this is really an important goal for us to try to get every high school student either in concurrent enrollment or a CTE pathway or an AP class, right? Because then we know they're best prepared for whatever they're going to do post-secondary.
From what I read in the second paragraph in the middle under strategies, it seemed as though you don't really know what the goal is. It's kind of just you want students to engage rather than you want them to engage in the CTE courses. I feel like I'm getting a little lost in all the wording
Yeah.
with it. But
In the first or the second bullet?
the second bullet.
Perfect.
That's probably just the only thing I have is just the wording really is a lot. Like that's just how I describe it. It's just a lot.
Yeah.
And so it's like almost unclear about what the goal is and how we're going to get there.
Sounds like EduSpeak.
That's because it is. Would it be more appropriate to say something like ensure each student enrolls in and or successfully passes at least one course in an advanced coursework area, like be as specific as that?
And that second bullet point is really talking about ACT and SAT prep, isn't it?
Yeah. I'm just wondering if we could help that first bullet so that it's more talking about taking more advanced coursework and then also perhaps maybe even having a reduction in credit recovery. Go ahead, Hutch, please.
Just when you were talking about like having a certain amount that each student has to take for advanced coursework, how would you plan to apply that? Would you just add that to graduation credits? Like, do you know how like there's math, science, and like a certain amount of credits that you have to take to graduate? Would you add that but have like an advanced category, like an advanced classwork category? Like how would we almost ensure or enforce that like students are taking the advanced classes?
That's a great question.
And it's an interesting suggestion to make it almost like a high school requirement that as they're looking, have I filled requirements? I mean, and I don't know if that's the right thing to do, but have them be advanced coursework, at least one class, or like a minimum of one class that fits in this category. And here, by the way, are a ton of options that represent advanced coursework. Because when I hear advanced coursework, my brain still says AP class. But we're actually not just talking about AP classes. So maybe some clarity around defining that and how we'll measure it. Because when you say like 78% advanced coursework, I'm assuming that means 78% of our graduating seniors enrolled in at least one class that qualifies as advanced coursework.
Yep. And I think even that aligns, Timpview and Provo, I believe, both in their school improvement plans listed that they wanted to increase the percentage of students that were taking advanced courses. And with CTE, they actually have to complete an entire pathway. So it's not just completing one course. And they pull that off of your transcript when you graduate, then they're pulling that information off of there. But I actually think that's a really good piece of advice to ensure that students are paying attention
It's on their
to
radar.
that. It's on their radar that this is really a priority that we have.
And then our counselors can be talking with parents also as well as students early on, even in that 8th grade. We meet with counselors in 8th grade before we transition to the high school, like setting an expectation that there's an advanced coursework kind of, I don't know what you would call it, but requirement, right? And that will mean either you will complete a CTE pathway or enroll in a concurrent enrollment or AP course and successfully complete those.
And perhaps that's something then that we address more in our portrait of a graduate, more specifically dive into that.
Okay, makes sense.
Right, because the goal of this though is not just to like check a box, right? Okay, we've got, it's to remind our students, right? We have the capability to do this, and sometimes they just need different supports or seeing someone who knows that they can do it, right? Like, it's about helping increase the rigor in the sense that we know more of our students can do it. They're just not choosing to, or not being encouraged, or just different barriers, right?
Monica and Hutch, can I send you a rewrite of this and see if we get it in more kid-friendly language for you? Because this is going to be the piece you guys are owning. So I would really like our kids to be able to be like, oh yeah, that makes sense to me.
Yeah, I would just add, I like some of the ideas we're throwing out here, but I don't think we want to get too specific on that in this document. I do think we want to focus on what is our goal, and then we have flexibility that we try something to increase, and if that's not working as successfully as we want, or as we learn and grow and we want to increase even more, we have adaptations, right?
Okay. Priority 2, page 7 an 8. Lisa, do you want to start? You had some, I think you had some, I'm just going to start with you every time because you were the one that put up the questions.
Oh, no. Okay. Sorry, I'm just going to look at it for a second and get my bearings.
I apologize, I put you on the spot.
I did have some questions around our communication goals, and I put them in the wrong order here. Okay. So when we're talking about increased communication about decision-making and resource allocation, I wanted to know what specifically are we increasing? That was one thing I had. I just felt like it was a little bit vague, like, are we increasing the volume of communication we send out? Because we have some control over that part, right? Or are we trying to increase the reach of our current communication? And if so, how will we measure that? And that doesn't necessarily all have to be in this document. Those were questions that came to my mind.
And you're talking about priority 3, right?
Sorry, oh, did I get it switched?
That's okay.
Sorry, I jump around. Oh, that is priority 3. Okay, priority 2, sorry. I don't think I had on my,
Okay.
really a question around that, except I didn't know what SET was.
Oh, the SET, yep. So the SET is a survey that we, it's a nationally recognized survey that we use to measure positive behavior interventions
Okay.
and supports. So I could certainly define that somewhere.
You don't necessarily have to. That was a question. That's why I put that in that early document, because I was like, I probably should know what this is, but
No,
I don't.
I don't think I think only
So-
elementary schools may know what that is.
I didn't know what it was either.
Yeah, no, you're totally fine.
I have a question on this. On priority 2, our baseline data here starts in 25 and goes through 30. Where on priority 1, it starts in 23 and goes
Yeah.
through 29.
We can make that. It's because we didn't have the 2024 data. I do now have the 2024 data.
Okay.
They just released that. So I can go into priority 1, put in 2024 as baseline. And the only reason that baseline's starting here in 2025 is because we've never done any kind of survey like this before, and it probably will take us this year to obtain that information and then determine our priority areas and how we want to improve.
So this document states that, like, it says strategic plan 24 through 29 at the bottom of all these.
So do we want to say 25 through 30?
So do we want to take off 30 off of here, or do we want this plan to go through
Right.
30? Do we want it to be a 5-year plan or a 6-year plan? Because if it's just supposed to go through 29, then the data into 2030,
We can pull that off.
maybe we just take that off. I don't know. I'm not saying we shouldn't make goals for 2030,
But consistency
Yeah.
across these priorities would
Yeah.
be good. Have we not done the USBE climate survey here in this district in the past?
Yes. I don't have,
Okay,
I would really wish that I had access to a lot of that data. It was under a former research and assessment.
I got it. Okay.
So you're correct in that, but that is something that we're planning to utilize.
Okay.
Other questions? Are we on a specific page? Are we still on
Yeah,
2?
we're still on priority 2, 7 and 8, pages 7 and 8. We good?
Yeah.
Okay, let's do priority 3. It's green.
I'm
Here we
sorry
go.
for jumping to 3. When you said Lisa, I was like, wait, I don't have anything on that one. Okay.
Oh, you're good. Sorry, I threw you off.
My question just holds around that
Okay.
clarity. And then, yeah. that's
So
the first
I'll
question.
have Caleb chime in if I don't represent this well, but we actually talked a little bit about this. How do we determine if our communication has increased other than just counting how many times we're reaching out, and do we really want to do that?
Right.
That probably isn't necessarily a bad thing to demonstrate that we are attempting to make the connections with individuals, but I think that's why we talked about doing a survey to identify how often people feel like they're getting that information. So we may be pushing it out, but are they actually retrieving that information? They could self-report on that. And then there could be some specific questions about, do you feel like that this is actually helping you to understand our decision-making processes. Because I think we give them a lot of information about, oh yeah, the district restructured, you know, I'll give you a good example of that, but their understanding of why that happened, I think people didn't feel like they understood that quite as well. And so it was more to see if we're zeroing in on those pieces and to utilize those survey data points and then identifying key areas that we need to improve upon. Okay.
Under the KPIs then, I think it would be really great and also be consistent with the first two priorities to then put this, name the survey or name whatever the measuring tool is when we do publish this, because otherwise it just looks like, well, we'll take some baseline data and our data will improve. And while that is how you measure progress on a goal, I think a little more clarity around what that is going to be. I don't know if you have to just name a survey, like a community outreach success survey or whatever you want to name that, but like putting that here just because under the other things you listed, USBE climate survey, or you listed RISE testing or whatever, that helps the reader know.
Anything else?
I'm just going to ask a quick question. KPI, did we talk about that? Like,
Stands for key performance indicators. I thought
but do most people know what KPI stands for?
I'll define that too.
Yeah.
A great question.
I actually am thinking about something we talked about 5 minutes ago.
Oh my gosh, Rebecca.
Okay.
I'm just kidding. Go for it.
It says at the bottom of all of these pages, strategic plan 2024 through 29. And then I was looking at the data going through 2030, feeling like that's off. But then we are already we're basically
25.
in September of 24. We're basically in 25.
Are we going
Do we
school
want
year or are we
this
going?
strategic plan to be 25 through 30 from here on out? Like I hate to lose a year of usage of this plan if we're, I mean,
24.5 through.
I would
like
I would
24.99.
I would prefer it to say 25 through 30 because I think what you're doing is there are some data points that we already have that we're going to start working on, but there's also going to be, this is going to be a baseline year, and I think we just have to recognize that.
Yeah, I think we need to make this
okay.
25 through 30 and keep that 30 data on
Okay.
there, and then maybe even add it to priority number 1.
Okay.
So we don't have
Yep.
any
No,
20,
we don't.
or we don't have any 30 data on there.
Yeah, because on page 6 or 7, what the priority one, is that what you're talking
Yeah,
about?
yeah.
It says 2023.
Yeah.
Goes to 29. We'll fix that.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
And then, yeah, we'll need to
It's
If
just
we're
not
using this
consistent.
year, though, as a baseline, we're still using this to guide us this year,
Yes.
then
For 20.
I'm fine with it to say 24 through 30.
Okay, you're fine to say 2024. And I think because on the academic data, we already have that data for 2024. We just don't have it on these other indicators, so. Okay.
I have one question about the communication surveys. Like, we're pushing communication out. Are we confident we're going to get people to fill out surveys?
No.
Okay, but we'll just try, right? I guess I'm just trying to I don't know.
I had the same thought though, because I thought now we've just changed it so everything's opt-in, right, too?
This
it's
survey is
opt-in
going
for
to parents.
students.
Parents,
This wouldn't
okay.
be for, this
Yeah.
wouldn't be for students.
I guess when we get there, right, how do we incentivize or how do we, but that's not, doesn't need to be in here. It's just something that,
No, I agree.
it's hard, right? Because it's hard to know if.
That was the conversation that we actually had, was trying to figure out how are we actually going to gather data on it. When we went in and looked at strategic plans from other districts, they don't have any KPIs. Like, it was just like, do better. And I was not comfortable with that. So am I wrong, Devin? Isn't that what it said? I felt like it was just like, do better or maintain the same level. And
Yeah,
so I think we are being kind of ambitious, but maybe we just start with that. And
Yeah, no, that.
2 thoughts. First of all, I liked what you said earlier about it being a living document. And so I think the goal's the most important thing that we set. And then if we do need to say, you know, the survey thing is not giving us the results or the data we want, but now we have an idea of it, something else that could, like, I think we could adapt that. My other thought I just had was, would it be helpful to say increase effective communication about decision-making? Because sometimes the quantity, we get to a point where we don't want any more communication because people get overwhelmed, right? But what is the effectiveness of our communication?
And we could do that with maybe a rating scale of
And
how
I think your
effective.
survey would help you
Yeah.
know what's effective for people and not. But
And are we okay with goal number 1 and retention of high-quality teachers? And does that sound okay?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep.
I understand that we have to narrow, and I like that we have narrowed through this whole process to be clear where we're focusing. I'm just going to give a shout out to all of our 1st through 5th year teachers and 15 and beyond. No, it's not that we don't value you. We do value you, and we're mindful of, are we supporting you well enough for the sake of the goals that will drive some of our key decisions over the next while. This is a choice that we made to specifically address our teachers between years 5 and 15.
I think Jason also brought up, and I appreciated this comment where it said to implement an employment satisfaction survey. So we can start disaggregating that too, based on how many years you've been in. So yes, our strategy and our goals might be tied to these more veteran teachers, but we also need to be examining that data and making sure that we're providing the right supports. And that, to Jennifer's point about it being a living document, we could come back and say, we might need to specify a specific goal for that support for our new teachers, and maybe add that. So we felt like the strategies were trying to incorporate that, even though the goal wasn't specific to that.
I've got a quick, this really is a question, I'm not suggesting anything. I got a lot of feedback probably because of the area that I'm in when it came to resources, that our buildings, I know we had conversations about this in the past, that our buildings are one of our biggest resources and things that people are concerned about, and we talked about different ways to do that. I'm not saying we need to add it in here. Is that included in the second goal, I'm assuming? Like that we're going to increase our communication about how we make decisions about buildings? About our capital facilities? Is that?
I think that was definitely the conversation that we had in our group, was about making sure that people were understanding what we were using buildings for, making it much more transparent about what that looks like. But we could add that as a specific strategy.
I got a few emails. Did anybody else get emails?
I felt like I did too.
Yeah.
Okay.
As I'm remembering
I'm wondering
that.
if we worded the goal itself to say something like increased communication about decision-making and resource allocation, strategic facilities use by, do you know what I mean? I don't know, like if it could get listed explicitly as something we're going to be communicating consistently about. I don't know if that's the place, or as another strategy. Either way.
I think we defined resource allocation as a building is a resource, and so that's.
That would be, I think that would be good.
But I also don't know that that's really transparent to everybody. Sometimes when resources, people are thinking about money in particular or personnel, they're not necessarily thinking about physical facilities, so we could add that.
Okay, I think that might be good.
Okay.
And I just have one more shout out for the photos. I know I'm perseverating on the photos, but I love that we have like non-math classes and I love the English and the math classes, but I love that we are looking at a variety of different coursework. Thank you.
Awesome.
Last page.
Our acknowledgements. If you'll just look at that and make sure everything's correct on there.
We're missing one community member that I am aware of. Her name's Angela Anderson, and she
Thank you.
joined like one meeting.
She did, and I knew there was somebody. And I was going to ask you, is it SEN or SON?
I believe it's SON. Let me
I'll
just check my
double-
notes
okay.
here.
It is SON.
Perfect. I have her as SON.
Okay.
I just want to say thank you to everyone who participated in the steering committee. That was big.
It was a lot of work.
this is also just a suggestion, we don't have to do it, but would it be helpful to make maybe people more aware about our student board member program if we had a asterisk or something by Will and Max and have something saying student board members?
Great.
Like, I don't know if that people might, but what's a student board member and what were they doing? I don't know, maybe that would get people to recognize that our students are one of our stakeholders.
Or make them their own little section, like previous student board members. Or,
Yeah.
I don't know.
We don't have to do that, it's just something I was thinking about.
And one quick thing I noticed on the very back where it lists our channels. I don't know if there's any way with our YouTube channel to just say, you know, and the name of the channel or something. Because for people to type in something
Nobody's
that's
gonna type
not
that in.
normal words.
I'll get
it's hard.
with Shauna and we'll simplify that. We'll figure that out.
I want to echo Terry's gratitude for everybody who's worked on this. This looks great. I know that we've been nitpicking it, but this is a document that we're going to be having for 5 years, and it's a very important document, so thank you.
Okay. Good, all right. Well, we are super behind. That's okay, we needed to do that. Like Gina said, we need to get into the weeds on this, so that's fine. Shall we take our break now to grab our dinner? Because our dinner break was supposed to be at 4:30, which was 8 minutes ago. Shall we have a quick
Cold if we don't.
break to grab our dinners, and then
I'm
we'll...
also wondering, do we want to change the order since Momi and Cami are here
Absolutely.
to do theirs first? We can
Yep.
do policies at the end.
Sure.
So.
Before we take a break, or?
Let's go ahead and grab our food, so it's going to get cold, and then as soon as we do that, we can come back and eat while we work. And we'll just go ahead and have item O moved up so that Cami and Momi don't have to hang out. Yeah,
They're an N, large purchase requests.
Oh, N. Oh, that's right, not for the student travel. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a break and grab our food, and then we can be right back.
Okay, perfect.
You don't want me to just go get you?
I'll have my phone here if you feel like there's too many choices.
Do you prefer like
What kind
a
of food is it,
salad
do you know?
or a burger or?
I know, I actually.
What food is it?
There's like a steak salad and a burger.
Steak salad.
Steak salad.
Okay.
Thank you so, and is there a Diet Coke?
I'll go grab one.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Oh my gosh, thank you so much. Thank you, Bonnie. I've already been served. Yeah, so nice. You guys are all so nice. Okay, how long do those cakes take you? Because that is a huge amount of work, I feel like. And you did like 3 in a week? Okay.
It's probably like 5 hours. Maybe less. I don't know. I should time it.
That is a gift of love. That is very
I
nice.
don't normally even do that many in a month.
I know. So when I saw that, then did she sleep all week? Like that is.
Luckily, it was less busy of a week for us.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, though, Jennifer, for making that for Wendy. That was so.
Oh, yeah. My pleasure. If I didn't have time, I would have done it. That's nice.
How's your Utah State student doing?
I think he's doing okay. He just sent us a picture of how many pages of calculus stuff he just had to print out, and it like
A lot. Where does he print, on campus?
it sounds like it. He said, "Thank goodness it's free print week."
Yeah. Okay. Oh, okay. Wait, I hope those are for you, like not just, okay. I'm like, I don't want a huge amount of fries.
I'll even share some of these, like, this is still more than
Yeah, I only
really
need a
want.
little.
If there's gonna be like a burger left over, I'm gonna take one home and eat it for breakfast.
Yeah, there you go.
I thought you were gonna say for your husband.
How's Thomas doing with school?
I went and volunteered in his class. I told you
You
this.
told me, yeah.
It's good to get a lay of the land, I feel like, for your kids' classes and who the kids are
Yeah.
That they're in there with, right? Because it just helps you know what they're up against all day long.
Yeah, and
That is hard.
he was complaining at how cold it was, and the kid's super skinny, and the pediatrician said he needs to eat more food, and I'm like, I'm trying. He won't eat.
Yeah. Zachary was not on the growth chart until almost grade. Not even on the chart. He wasn't sick. He's just little and skinny. He was always cold.
Actually,
Yeah. So we had to start.
I would like add
giving
butter
him a
and cream
Totally fine.
and whole milk.
jacket.
encroach on my own space.
You're not encroaching
Yeah.
at all.
Yeah, they've got
Oh my gosh, I'm
whole milk.
Actually, looks
Uh-huh.
delicious. I know it's hard for me to.
Store
I
yesterday.
didn't choose salad. You're smart. Well, I got the fries, so I feel good about that.
He'd rather, play with his toys than eat food.
All right, who's left to come?
Because that's way
Such a
more
smart
important.
kid.
Come on.
If you would like to share my.
She has some in there too, thank you. Wow.
Yeah.
If you want to
There are
two-fist
so
it,
many
just let me
fries.
know. 2 handfuls.
No.
Oh.
Okay, let's go ahead and get started again.
We keep pushing what's special.
We're going to go ahead and rearrange the order of our meeting just a little bit. And we are going to tackle item N on our agenda. We're going to have a discussion now about some large purchase requests. And Devin, that's for you.
All right. So the first one, and we'll do the Momi and Cami ones first. So the first one is for the scoreboards. There's a couple of bids. They're pretty much the same, attached, one for Provo High, one for, they're for 2 different sizes of scoreboards. So the first one, and correct me if my dimensions are wrong, Daryl, is almost 16 by 27 and a half. And then the second one is a 17 by 30. Anyway, so it's just the size that's the difference. The first one with the installation, or at least partial installation, they're both just a little over $400,000 for each school. So there's several things that the district will be responsible for. Any landscaping, we're required to bring all the wires and electrical for the scoreboard. So there will be an additional cost for a lot of that. So would you guys like to talk about it?
Wait, so additional cost, do you have any idea what that would be?
We're looking probably at least $250,000 for each. In addition, for the pulling wires, the structural changes that need to happen for the different sizes of the scoreboards.
So we're talking about $750,000 for scoreboards?
No, at one point.
For one scoreboard. Yeah. So that would be each. And I'm going to estimate high.
I'm confused.
Well, some people may think that's a little bit low, but most of the installation responsibility is with the company, but all of the cleanup or the getting ready for the installation is the district's responsibility. So each one would be right around $750,000.
We would love to hear from the principals about this. We're pretty curious about why and how this came about.
Thank you so much for allowing us this time to present this proposal. I'm Momi Tu'ua, principal at Tempe High School. Cami
Alvarez, principal at Provo High School, and we'll tell you how we both ended up together on this.
About a year ago, we realized that we were having separate conversations about our scoreboards. Tempe High School scoreboard is about 21 years old. Provo High School's scoreboard came from the old build to the new, and we don't quite know how old it is, but it's not new.
Wait,
It's probably, is
it
it new
came
to
from
the
the
new
old
field?
school?
Yes.
They didn't give you a new one when the new school was built?
No.
Right.
It probably was new to the new field, right?
it
To
was.
Provo High's
No,
new field?
it
No, it wasn't
wasn't.
even new to that either.
The old
Yeah,
scoreboard. It's the old
it's
one.
old. Yeah.
Like the older
meant- I
version
mean-
of the old Provo High or the new version of the old Provo High?
I
From
mean,
what
when
I
they tore down
understand-
when they tore down the old rec center and built Provo High Stadium, that's how old Provo High's scoreboard
much.
is, correct?
Correct.
Okay,
Yes.
that's what I was
Correct.
trying to clarify. Okay.
Yeah. So about a year ago, we decided to work together and do our due diligence in visiting different schools in different districts. And so the information that we gathered, we went and visited 2 sites, and then we talked to principals over the phone. The 2 school districts that we visited are Alpine and Park City. And we kind of learned from them what they have, what they wish they had, what they learned. And from there, we had multiple discussions with district leadership and with different vendors. So we're going to talk about different areas. We're going to talk about the curriculum, the academic, and the career opportunities, what different sports it also provides service to. And then we're going to talk about the community at large, including our student government and our neighbors. And we'll go from there.
And I'll tell you guys, just looking at me, maybe you can tell or not, but like, I'm not the greatest with sports. So when I went to the sports things, like, that's been learning for me. But I do feel like it's important for my community, my students. I value the sports and the things that they offer, and I know that's a huge part of the school. When I started going out to other schools, and I'd go to the soccer game, the football game, one of the things that I noticed is all of them had a digital scoreboard. They were all different, some were better than others, but ours had nothing. It was just the regular scoreboard. So when we were talking about this, one of the things that I value a lot is anything that's authentic learning. And I've started this year in other ways to bring some different authentic learning to Provo High School. And one of the things about this, it's not just about sports, it's also about curriculum and academics. I had a student last year I was talking to, and she was really interested in sports broadcasting. She was doing some stuff for our softball team, and she wanted to go to, I think UVU has a program. So one of the things with this scoreboard is they also have a curriculum. So it would add a component of learning that I think kids would be excited to do. Not only that, but it actually goes into a lot of different areas, even graphic design. In our internship program, we would be able to offer more internships for students that are interested in that. And so for me, the authentic learning is huge. Another one is obviously the sports. And the thing is about this one, it targets a lot of sports, okay? So obviously one of the bigger ones you know is football, but we also have boys and girls soccer, boys and girls lacrosse. Our cheerleaders perform there, our dance groups perform there, our marching band performs there. We have track, and all of these extracurricular activities. One of the other things they do to raise money is banners. They sell banners. I don't know if you see the banners hanging up around all of the fences and everything else. But when you do that, you have to take a cost out, right, for the printing. And then it takes time. Our custodians go and put them up. And then in days when it's windy, it goes down. So one of the things even here, these would all become digital. So all of the advertisements and everything else would become digital. With that, we've talked to the program, and they also have somebody there that helps us to do fundraising for that. So my hope is that this is not just like, hey, you pay this, this is it. This is something that's going to bring money in. And they estimated, help me, Momi, about how much did they tell us per year?
The lifespan is between 10 and 12 years of this type of digital board. You're talking about the fundraising.
The advertising, what you get back in advertising.
Yes, so between 25 to 45,000 is what we learned from other schools in their advertising strategy for multiple seasons. I wanted to say with the banners, there's this, it's cost and labor intensive because every school year, every sports season, they put up banners and then they take them down and resell those, right, with every season. And so this makes it streamlines it, and then they can see it on the digital board. And it really does also satisfy our companies that want to partner with us when they see something on that digital board versus something that's fixed in a dark corner of the stadium.
And then I've even thought of other things. Last week, I think we did our first evacuation drill. And we're trying to get better at that. But when, thank you for laughing. No, but when we do that, taking over 2,000 students onto the football field to go find their teacher and coordinate efforts, they're running up to me, to other teachers, where am I supposed to go? Where's this person? I was like, wouldn't that be nice if I just had it digitally up there and everybody can go and see. And even in the event there was a real emergency, it would be easier, like we're looking for this student, the name, go to, blah, 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 your teacher's looking for you. The other thing is our student government yesterday. They had a big event there for their clubs and brought everyone out. So it's not just sports, but it's like the entire community, the entire school can benefit from that.
Can I say something?
Yeah, go ahead.
During one of our games, one of our students, Haley, she received a scholarship. There was a big announcement, but we couldn't find her or see her face on the field. So this is an opportunity also to feature students and programs during this time. If you've been at any event, they take this commercial break and you can feature students more broadly in this type of, with this type of digital board.
But overall, I feel like the facilities we have, Provo High School, we have a really nice school. I know a lot of mine was going into Timpview to make things nicer there, but I feel like any learning place that the facilities and the things out there, it shows how much you value what goes on inside. And for me, some of these are smaller costs compared to what's bigger, but I think it's important for the community to see that we value our students and we value these programs. And it's a nice way to highlight all of those things. I loved it when I saw other places and I'd see the picture of the student come up and you could actually see them and know that. And I thought that would be great. But let me know any other questions, I guess, or anything else, Momi?
Oh, yes. And as far as the community using the digital scoreboard, what we learned from other schools is that they only had a digital board and they did not have a separate scoreboard. And they wish that they had both features so that when our community wants to rent our stadium, of course we want to let them use the scoreboard, but then the other parts, we are able to preserve it and not, ramp up the repair costs for that. So, we took our community in mind when we were looking at these different features of the digital board. Sorry, I had to cough. It's wonderful that we have student board members here, and you might want to ask them as well. And I've not spoken to them about it, but they have probably this experience with what they have seen at other schools and what they see at our schools as well.
And then the other thing I want to point out is, I'm actually kind of a frugal person myself when I spend for this school. I'm really careful about what I do because I understand those are taxpayer dollars, and so I don't ever take anything lightly. When it comes to things that are technology, one thing that I've learned just in my life in general is it changes really quick. And what we put now in 10 years, somebody else is it's gonna be like, oh my gosh, it changes really quick. So this is a big expense, but it's not something for 2 years or 3 years. I think it's important even as a district, think of like, what is that life cycle for that? When does that update? And so it's something, that's long-term. The other thing is we've been talking to the company, and I think you can see probably some of the different proposals, which one of them that they had that seemed maybe the best to me was that they have 0% financing over 3 years.
Yeah, that was an incentive if we were to purchase this and install during their off-season time. One of the incentives was that 0% financing over 3 years.
By off-season, does that mean like in the winter?
Yes.
Okay.
Early spring, yep.
Their time frame was February.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so total for the two.
Do we want to hear from the student board members?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah, why don't we? Hutch and Monica?
I think that it's a great idea. I've been to other schools' football games, and I've realized that a scoreboard like that creates a fun atmosphere. Being able to see replays of the game, being able to see the student section, students want to cheer louder, they want to be more engaged. Even just broadcasting like a cheer now or having the chants on the scoreboard. Everyone wants to be involved and they want to have that fun atmosphere, so I think it's a great idea.
I agree with Monica. Just it's very different. Last year we as a football team we played at Spanish Fork, and it's just a different atmosphere when there's that big screen up there, and they did some replays, but even just the scoreboard itself, it was just a different atmosphere. It felt more energetic. It felt more like a game-like atmosphere, and also to Mrs. Alvarez's point, the student gov activity that we did yesterday, we had to put up a inflatable screen, and I think it took maybe almost an hour to get that thing up and running, and like we had to tie it down, which is kind of hard on a turf field, but like stuff like this can be used beyond just athletics, and so I think it's a great idea.
thanks, guys.
Okay. All right. Questions, comments from the board?
I have a couple questions. What's the warranty on this? I mean, I've been out to like Maple Mountain in Salem, and they do have a digital board, and I've been out there for track, and they weren't using the digital part.
Right.
I think it was 3 years.
Okay, I have to look at the documents. I want to say for 3 years, and there was something instead of the 3, if I remember correctly, instead of the 3 years zero financing, there was another option that you could add on extras, which you could get more, what was it? Free upgrades, 3-year labor, other incentives besides that. So when you put it, if we were to install in the winter, that could be a different option besides 0% financing. I want to say with the actual,
3 years.
thank you, she's finding it right here.
It's 2-year parts.
2-year.
And on-site labor, and then there's an additional 3 years parts for a total of 5 years for the coverage.
For
Thank you, Deb.
$15,640. That's what that coverage costs.
Depending on
Which one you buy?
version you're doing.
And I'll say, that is when we did our homework. We didn't just go and do one. I said, okay, I don't know when they put 16 feet. I have no idea what that is. Like those sizes, I was like, okay, I got to go look. Yeah. So we actually went out to Park City, went to Cedar Valley to go and look so I could understand what the sizes were. And one of the things, as Momi stated, is talking to the people that installed them. We learned a few things. Like one of them you have added on there was the sound system. One, I think, they're like, I wish I had done the sound. Like it was only this, we should have done it, and now we have this other issue. And the other one was separating. So some of them on the digital, they do the score on the digital, but they also have a separate, or you can go with the separate scoreboard. We did the separate scoreboard. At first I was like, yeah, just do the digital. But after we spoke to them, they realized they did have some issues like that. And in the middle of the game, something goes wrong. It created more havoc. And so that was why they had why we put in the scoreboard separate from the digital.
Along that same line, is there regular maintenance that has to be performed on a board like that? Is there a large cost associated with something like that? Light bulbs burn out, or, I mean, I don't know.
Good question, because that is part of the, I don't know, I'd have to ask.
Because if it's
It
like
looks like
digital,
there is
is
on-site
it going to have
labor.
to be like computer updates to it on a regular basis?
They do, they provide the
They take
computer and do
care
the
of that?
updating, yes.
Okay. So my other question, this is more for Devin. Capital facilities, is this something that's on our capital facilities budget that we start every 10 years? We start,
It's something that we could put on there, but it's not currently.
just something I think we should think about, because these are large purchase requests that if it's only something that's going to last 10 to 12 years, we should probably have it on that cycle.
I've got to, go ahead, Gina, sorry. I'll ask whatever you guys don't ask.
This is for Devin as well. Where are we going to get the money?
Part of it will come from the schools. They're willing to forgo some budget over the next few years to cover the cost of the scoreboards. The other piece we're hoping comes from some fundraising or some donations that the schools can try to generate, and then the rest would have to come out of fund balance.
Do you have any kind of idea what our actual cost will be in the end?
The rest, what the rest looks like.
That's a very good question. We haven't, go ahead, Wendy.
How much were you guys planning to put in each year? Because you're going to pay for it over 3 years, right?
So
what were your
correct.
plans
And when
for
I
that?
initially, my plan was to use funds. We had initially last year had a new budget of our capital funds budget. Now, rather than just spend it like, oh, because I have it, I spend it, I was like, well, what really would this most, what would this work for best? And so that was my plan, to use those funds to save up, to contribute. Now, it's a little different. I think for Provo High last year, it was about 100,000, I might be off. And then, but the amount we have for that has changed. I think it's half of that, so it'd probably be about 50,000 the next 3 years. So, and help me, I'm gonna go to Devin, because Devin's the answer. If I am wrong, you can tell me, no, you're totally off, Cami. But I would think at my school, it'd probably have about 250 over 3 years.
So just the little bit of a difference in that now is there's no more school capital. We moved that over to the general fund
0060.
over into your 0060. So we could pull it out
We
of
could
that.
earmark it to take there.
Yep, so the high schools have about 50 to 75,000, depending on how many students you have extra this year that you haven't had before. So that is something that we could pull out for those 3 years. And plus, we could pull, both of them had a little bit of money left. Momi had a little bit more left this year in her 0060 that we could pull back and also help support to pay that.
So that sounds like a little over 200 over 3
So
years.
for
maybe
this year,
close to
with
3.
what they had left over in their school capital, and then their 0060, we have about 400,000 in those dollars. And then over the next 3 years combined, so both of them together, and then over the next 3 years, it would be about 85 to 100,000, both of them together. So it would cover about a half of what we're looking at right now.
So that's why we looked at that one incentive of 0% financing over 3 years to be able to use our allocation, what we have earmarked, and then what we're allocated now through 3 years.
So can someone give me like concrete numbers here? What's the total cost? What's coming out of the schools?
So the total cost of the scoreboards is, what I would project is about $1.5 million, between 1.5 and 1.75, once you get the scoreboards plus the installation.
Okay, hold on a second, because when I'm looking at these numbers and looking at the installation, I'm looking at a number just for the scoreboards that's going to be about 900,000.
Yeah.
So you're telling me it's going to be another 900,000?
Another 600,000 to 900,000 for our cost to run wires, to fix, because we have to have all of the structures in place for the scoreboards.
And who's given us that number?
That's just a guess from our maintenance department, which we know could be a little bit high, but I
We do
dropped
know
it.
that's really high,
okay,
right?
They doubled it. I decreased it based on about the percentage that I generally get over what they have. So they said 2 million. I brought it down to 1.5 because I figured that it was a little bit high what they were telling me. Now we could go out and get actual bids on what the pulling of those wires would look like, both fiber and electric. And Daryl, so on our requirements, they have the requirements. There is, we have to get the permits, and then the customer is responsible to ensure the existing structure is adequate. So we have to redo those posts because it's not adequate for the size of the, so that's where most of the cost would be, is redoing those poles and the posts where those are. And then any landscaping that is torn up.
Okay, so total cost 1.5 to 1.9 million. And the schools.
I would say 1.9 is really high.
Okay. And the schools will contribute a total of about?
We're looking at about 500 to 600,000 just from existing budgets and what they had left over.
Okay.
Probably a little bit more.
So when I'm looking at this attachment A, it says new foundations are priced to be installed without any additional cost to remove concrete sidewalk. Additional cost will apply if there's a need for additional concrete cutting, but an allowance has been included. I feel like there are allowances that have already been put in place for the foundation for part of this. It's just additional costs that are coming onto that, but we don't have any actual hard numbers.
We don't have any actual hard numbers because we'll have to get an engineer to come in and tell us what that's going to look like, and that is part of the customer responsibilities. So obtain a certified engineer, drawings to the extent required by law, and providing to Daktronics upon reasonable request documentation relating to the existing structure and modifications necessary. So I apologize, I was not in any of the meetings with Daktronics, so Daryl may be able to respond to that a little bit better.
Yeah, I was under the impression that there's a chance that our current polls, especially at Provo, would hold the scoreboard. I don't know if that's changed.
I think it depends on the size,
You're right.
And
So
I can't
there's a
remember
chance-
which one.
There's a chance that we do not need to remove all that's there. We already have power there.
It's just the digital.
It's just the digital Ethernet wire that's in question. And
So
I don't-
maybe we need to go and find out actual costs and what needs to happen. I mean, that will require getting some engineering done to see on the specifications of the scoreboards that are there, get some information from the engineer on what's required and if those poles are sufficient for what's there.
Please.
First of all, thank you for thorough information, and I love that you went out and talked to other schools and learned from them. I think that's fantastic and really helped me understand why this would be a good benefit. We're not voting on this today. I know we're planning to look at it at our next meeting, but I was curious just on the timeline, if we were to have them install during the off-season, when do you guys have to have, like, you have to know that by?
By the end of September.
Okay.
That's for the current pricing that we have. Other than that, then I don't know, then it changes.
So that also gives us some time to get some information.
Do you happen to know how long the install takes? How long it will disrupt the usage of the field, if it at all?
I think it's 6 weeks, right?
I don't remember.
Because they said June and July is when they would have typically done it. So I'm thinking 2 months.
Couple months.
Okay.
I feel like what, February, March?
Probably depends on how much prep work on the site that we have to do, right, at each school. That would factor into that.
The digital board has to be hardwired as well. So there's an internet feature and then the hard wiring. So we did prepare the conduits for it to happen with our West Stadium build.
Yep. Yeah, we did. We had, they prepped it for the conduit underneath the field before we started the turf replacement.
I have more
Go ahead.
questions.
Go ahead, Terry.
Okay, so the current scoreboards, where are they going? Timpview softball has never had a field ever. Are they going to get the old scoreboard? And what about, I know Provo High softball has a terrible scoreboard in a terrible location. Are they getting the old scoreboard?
I mean, I'm open to that, but then that would cost, there'd be an additional cost probably to go and move that. You'd probably have to put the footings, the same thing, the wiring and everything else. But I mean, I'm open to that.
In our new build for phase 3, what's coming up right now, the scoreboard is included in the build, the new scoreboard for the softball field. But there's already one provided for softball.
Okay, and this is where I need the athletic people. The current football, though, that's not softball, it's not a board that you could move to softball.
No.
Okay, so look, I'm proud of myself because I figured that out really quick. It actually doesn't apply.
So then what's the plan for the current scoreboards?
Can I just be very honest here with our scoreboard? Every day we do this ritual so that the scoreboard doesn't turn off, and it does. Right in the middle of the game, it will turn off. We have had volunteers come to do patchwork. So if you go look closely, we have thin metal sheets on the scoreboard because what's underneath is just hanging wires and just broken plastic. And so we've had volunteers help out with that. It's on its last leg, honestly, and we are grateful, at least for 2 games now, that the scoreboard hasn't turned off. But when we have games, it's inevitable that it will turn off at least once during a season.
So it may not be hand-me-downable.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the truth is they're old. Because I thought of that too. It's like, well, could somebody buy this one? You could put it out there, but I don't think you'd get much. I think you'd be lucky if maybe somebody hauled it away and you wouldn't have to pay that. I don't know. I'm just being honest, but I don't know if there's a market somewhere else that somebody would want that. But I guess Devin might know if you surplus it or.
I don't know.
So Terry,
That
are
was
you
my
asking
question.
more to make sure that if this gets replaced for football, that we then also in our capital facilities are looking at how we're upgrading and what the softball, baseball, other sports are looking at, and make sure that we have this equitably?
I mean, that's also
Wanted to
a
add on
question,
that
but
question,
also,
yes.
yeah, the girls softball scoreboard at Provo High is in a terrible location. People can barely see it.
True.
And they didn't actually think about, they just put it in a location. They didn't even think about what they were doing. And then, yeah.
So I wanted to add to that, which that was one thing I was concerned about. We have to be very conscious of being fair across everything in Title IX, and we are actually compelled to by law.
Yeah.
So if we do this for the football field, which includes multiple sports, which is great, what happens to the baseball field and the softball field? Is it appropriate for them to have a scoreboard just like that as well? And are they going to freak out when they don't have one and football does?
So we did our homework as well with the baseball field. We knew that girls softball, their scoreboard was included in the build. We looked at the baseball field, and for years, they don't even manufacture the light bulbs that are out on the scoreboard at the baseball field. And so we also got quotes from different vendors, and right now it looks like a $45,000 quote for a new baseball scoreboard.
Is it of the same, is it
It
digital?
is. It's not digital. It just shows the score from the innings
Okay,
and the players' numbers, and yeah.
okay.
And I don't know the answers to this, but I'm curious when you do go to Spanish Fork or what the other schools, like how they answer that, or what the, like, did their softball or baseball, do they have digital ones? I don't know.
So I haven't, I'll answer that. I haven't seen that, and Daryl can also pipe in with that. But I think the issue is you're looking at, when you're looking at the investment that you're making, you're looking at 2 things. You're looking at the number of students that it's actually serving. So when you're looking at a football stadium and how many sports that actually serves, it's more students overall. It's just like in a gym, right? For basketball, it's serving more than basketball. It's also volleyball, so on and so forth. when we also need to look at, if we're evaluating this based on age, these scoreboards have aged out, we would need to use the same rubric for our baseball and our softball scoreboards at each school as well, and then you apply that rubric to determine at what point you're going to go in and replace those. That's how you maintain that equity across the board.
As well as in our
That's what I'm-
gymnasiums, in our gyms as well, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yep.
And that's what I was asking, if these are on our capital facilities rotation.
Well, they are going to be. I mean, I think it absolutely
I mean,
needs
they're
to be.
obviously something, I mean, we talk about like, we're going to have to replace bleachers, or we're going to replace, different things. This is obviously a cost that does need to be replaced on a 10, 15-year basis.
Yeah, and I agree. Our capital facilities replacement cycle needs to be much richer than just things inside a building, carpet, walls, et cetera. So all of those things need to be kept in mind.
Devin, we did talk about this in our April capital facilities meeting a little bit, and I recall this from that meeting, and we don't need to decide this, but when you guys spoke about the actual revenue that may come in from improved banners and advertising, this idea that, the school keeps so much of a percentage of it, and then the district gets a small percentage that we put in a fund for the replacement cycle. It was like 80-20.
Yep.
I just looked up my notes, because I remember us talking about this and the extra money from that, that principal money that they would both be using, and then we could maybe have something like that.
But I want to be clear about the banner fundraising. I don't know if we're talking about the same thing. The banner fundraising typically goes back to the students to help pay their sports fees.
But there are two different things, though. You are correct. There's two different things. There's the banners, which would be that, but we also have the advertisements fixed advertisements on there. And we can still sell other advertisements as well. That would go, so you are correct.
Okay.
They're two different, but there's brings income in both ways.
I'm a parent of a student athlete, so I understand how expensive things can get and how it adds up. But since this is going towards the majority of sports, I'm just going to be honest, this is for sports. Yes, student government can use it once or twice a year, or you might have student assemblies once or twice a year outside. Can we add an extra $5, $10 fee that goes into a pot for replacing those? That's just like part of the fee of playing?
You mean like in the players' fees?
Yes,
like
in the
it's a
players'
$5 fee for like the
There's
scoreboard
actually a clause in the school fees rule that you can actually put in a fee for a replacement cycle for equipment that's used in the program. So we could absolutely do that.
I mean, I don't want to increase those fees because they are expensive as it is, but even if it's like $5 or $10, that's just an extra fee that we're starting to accumulate. I don't know.
And we could do that. I mean, we'd have to be really mindful of any balances in those accounts would
need to be
wouldn't want to be spent on other things. So we'd want to make sure that it is segregated into a different account so that we can keep it separate. So either it comes to the district in kind of this capital fund to be able to hold on for those, or it stays at the school and just isn't spent for those few years.
Okay.
I have more questions.
Go ahead, Terry.
So what's the plan on how to be trained to use this and how to operate? And you said internships. What's the plan for that?
So Daktronics actually provides a service to train adults, the faculty, and then they also provide the curriculum where the faculty, the teachers then teach to the students. That's something built into the scoreboard, yeah.
Okay.
Current faculty that are already.
So current faculty, we already have a class that does video production. So this could be an additional class. The way I've seen it is they would run that curriculum, and those students would, with the support of the teacher, whoever, would be actually the ones running it. So you pre-plan, right, everything, and so it's all created beforehand. And so that would be done in class, and then there would be somebody watching the students, but they would be the ones running and doing that. So it is a learning component for them.
Because
It's
right
an actual
now,
class that
when
we would offer.
someone is paid through the athletic department to sit there and push buttons to operate a scoreboard, is that also going to continue, or how is that going to change with this kind of scoreboard?
I can speak to our teachers at Timpview High School. We have the TV video production class where the curriculum is delivered. We also have a teacher who's experienced in this area who currently works a scoreboard with athletics, where they would partner, the two teachers would partner on the curriculum and the delivery in the classroom, and then the extension experience as interns in the press box.
So does that mean that the teacher needs to have extra stipend from athletics to be able to operate this thing?
Currently, we have stipends allocated for games, and he would continue with that type of stipend. Now, I could see an increase, an hourly increase for professional development in how he would use it, but his expertise would be rolled back into the stipend that we currently have for people who operate the scoreboard.
I'm the same kind of thing. We already have people that are paid that do that. It would just be a training piece for them. And I would probably have multiple people, the same like what we do now, of the same people going and kind of in doing that. But I'd also have kids like in somebody supervising, right, with those students to be able to be there. So when a problem, they have somebody to rely on to help them problem solve that. But it wouldn't be much different than what we do now. It'd just be a little bit of a learning curve for the people, like learning a new system. It's like when you get your new computer and you have to change everything up, or your new phone.
Okay. My next question is, have you spoken to the neighbors about how they would like this big giant thing in their neighborhood? Because from my experience as a neighborhood chair, Provo citizens do not like big giant screens. They opposed the hospital giant screen. They opposed the one on University Avenue.
It's still in litigation.
Yes. So have you spoken to
I'm
the
not, I
neighbors?
didn't take so I can't speak. It's more speaking to a few people. They would love it because they want that for the community. They feel like it would be something positive. But I mean, I think anything you do, you're always going to have somebody who maybe opposes it. So I don't know because I can't say I've, surveyed all of them, but just in talking with people, they were excited about the possibility.
Because the lighting's going to be going in a certain direction. They're going to be like,
But it won't be
why
on
is this
all the
going
time.
into
Those
my
other things are all
bedroom?
No, and they have the lights on during a
around
game.
events and stuff, which
Yeah.
hopefully brings community
Well, that's why I was like, they were more excited about it more than that. And it's true right now, like we have the big old lights, right? And I can't say I've had anybody complain about those. So I don't think it would be any different. They'd be on the same time that we already have all those lights.
I do think it's a good thing to follow up on though, and maybe ask some questions. We could ask some questions with the city. These kinds of boards do, in the neighborhood meetings I've been to, almost every neighborhood district meeting, I feel like we're discussing some kind of a sign or light pollution or noise pollution within neighborhoods. And so it might be just a good idea to talk with our neighbors about something. Is it any significant difference from what we already have in terms of light and sound, or is it similar? Do you know what I'm saying? I just think it'd be good to ask a couple questions of the city and the neighborhood district chairs around that.
Okay, so we're not voting on this
I know,
evening.
that's what I'm wondering.
So that's a good segue into, if there are more questions, we're just in the interest of time, we do need to move on. If there's any more questions, will you all please forward your questions to me? We'll go ahead and collect questions, and we'll get them to Devin and possibly the principals. Try to get some more solid answers before we do take a vote on this.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for coming.
And we can work on getting engineering to give us some specs so we have a better idea of what the cost will be.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, there was one more large purchase request, two more large purchase requests.
Two
Devin?
more. Shall we do the easy one first?
Yep. Yes.
Okay, we'll do the easy one first. The next one is the actual contract and the payment for the boundary and feasibility study. So that quote was the one that was provided for us during our RFP process. And that is, I think it's I don't have it open in front of me. It's on the back last page.
All right.
142,838?
Sorry, that's the one. I knew it was 140 something. I wrote it in last night. So that one is for that boundary and feasibility study to commence as soon as we are ready to meet with MGT.
All right, are there any questions for Devin on this particular large purchase request? Good, okay. We're ready for the last one.
Okay, so the last one is our nurses contract with the county. They have provided us with a contract for some full-time and then 242-day and 181-day. That contract this year is $900,000 for those services provided by the health department with those nurses. So it's $225,000 per quarter.
Are you ready for questions?
Yep.
Okay, how much more is this than previous contracts?
So about 5 years ago, the contract was right around 350. So we've gone up significantly, but we've also added nurses and they've added services, and we are now paying a significant portion of overhead costs.
Whose overhead cost?
The health department. So part of the health department director, the doctor. So there's about, Wendy, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was right around 35% of that, of their cost. So at the end of, also in the contract, which is one of the things that concerns me, is, and it's added up to about almost $500,000 the last 2 years, is the clause that says they'll provide, or they'll calculate the number of hours actually spent by school nurses compared to what they have in the contract, and then they can bill us for anything additional. And we've been told that it's only the overhead that we are paying the additional of, which again is not my favorite. Overhead is not a great discussion for me, especially when the county has decreased their budget. So we're picking up kind of the slack of their department. So
have they billed us for overage? They have.
Last year they built us $270,000, and this year they billed us $140,000.
So you're saying we would pay this $900,000, and then there's still a possibility we pay more?
So last year's contract was just under $800,000, just over $800,000, and then they $200,000 on top of that. $240,000 last year, $140,000 this year.
When a contract says it's a 12-month or 10-month full-time equivalent, that doesn't mean that they're on salary? They're still paid hourly?
They are salary, yes. So, but if they have any overtime, but they're telling us that's not part of this contract. The most of what we're paying over and above the salaries of the nurses are the overhead costs of the health department.
So, Jennifer, go ahead if you have another question.
Okay, I wasn't sure if Meg, did you have one?
Well, I'm
You
curious.
have some expertise in this.
Well, I mean, not really. I haven't been a school nurse. If we, do not sign this contract, I mean, what are our other options for school nurses?
So other districts actually hire their own nurses.
Okay.
The 3 districts in Utah County we've all talked about that possibility. But other districts in Salt Lake have their own nurses on staff.
Who do they report to? Like who's managing the nurses within a district?
You usually have a head nurse.
Yeah,
so
like a charge nurse.
You'll have a head person that would be the same as these overhead costs, but it's going to be an individual, and they'll often be one of your only 12-month nurses because you're hiring the other ones as 10-month nurses instead.
Okay.
But they oversee everything.
And then insurance-wise, like for these nurses and their licensing, like will they have to, when we hire them, will they have their own insurance? As like right now, was an employee of Intermountain, right? I don't carry my own nursing insurance. It's covered with the entity that I'm hired through.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we'd figure those things out.
We would have to find that out.
So
I
I'm
mean,
sure
that's one of the questions that we had, is if this is something that we want to pursue, then those are all of we would want to go talk with some other
Wendy and I
districts
will
that
go meet with other principal or other superintendents and business administrators to find out what they've done and what that
Right.
process
Or
is.
just, I would want as a nurse that I'm being hired to make sure I was covered if there's anything that happened, right, and how that would look.
So it looks like this contract is for this school year.
It is?
So
Is it too late to?
seems like it's probably too late for this year
It's
to
likely
pivot.
too late for this year, but what it would do is provide us with direction of what you would like to do for next year. And we'd have time to actually go and decide what it is that we want to do, or at least gather information so we can bring it back to you to make that determination. I'm not a nurse.
So that sounds like two separate decisions, approve or not approve this contract, and then either way, determine if we move forward with looking at our own nurses.
Correct. And really, the nurses are already in place. So not approving it this year would be a little difficult. But what we wanted was a decision of, let's start exploring what it would look like if we did our own nurses rather than going through the health department. What would the ramifications be? How are other districts doing it? The other districts to our north and south are also interested in the same process and would like to work with us on that as well.
Because are they also using like Utah County, right? Because
Yep.
it's all-
Each of them has a contract with them.
Do we know like the overtime tasks or time, like what our nurses are doing that would incur those, like the overtime stuff? Like, is it above like what they reasonably need to do in our schools? You know what I mean? I don't.
It's a very good question. It's really a percentage of time that the administrative staff is working on school nurse items.
As opposed to like
As
county health
opposed
stuff.
to what this, so that is,
They're doing
when
both
we met
jobs.
with them originally, they told us school nurse actual overtime, but when they sent us a clarifying email, they said, oh, there's no overtime, this is just administrative cost overage. So it's a significant portion. When you look at 35% of 900,000, that's a lot of an admin cost that we're dealing with along with, and some of those increases were salary increases that the county gave last year that then they passed on to us mid-year. So.
Well, and.
That we
Oh,
had
no,
no
go ahead.
say over.
Go ahead, Wendy.
I just wanted to say that the county tried to start negotiating this contract back in December. And I worked with Derek a little bit on that, and then we've had some changes, obviously. And so just trying to kind of connect back with county health and what this actually entails. That's why it's not getting to you until now. But we actually met with them back in May, and we've just been going back and forth because I've wanted additional clarification, and Devin has wanted that, and so that's why it hasn't come to you until now.
That was my question.
Yes.
I honestly was just the timing.
We've been working on it for quite a while.
I feel like
We've
I've been
already
working
got our
on it for like 8 months.
nurses in place for the school year. I often feel like large purchase requests come to the board at a point where I personally feel I have no choice but to pass them through and along. And this is, I understand that. That helps me to know, because that does start to feel frustrating sometimes. Like, well, this is broken and we've already had to do this thing. And I'm like, okay. But at a certain point, those really do add up. And anyway, so thank you for explaining why it's coming now.
And we would like to explore different options and have those costs laid out as to what that would look like.
So I think it's safe to say that the board probably agrees we'd like to give you that directive to go ahead and look into that option. Is everyone okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay, great. And then we will go ahead and vote on this contract later today. Okay.
Yep.
Are there any further comments or questions on this?
I had the red, it's in red, that's 3 12-month and then 4 10-month. What was the number before?
They were all 12-month.
Oh,
They all worked
all
200.
7?
Yep, all 7 worked 242 days.
Okay.
Okay, thank you so much. All right. Item N is checked off, and we have a lot of items left, and we have about 40-ish minutes. So let's just go ahead and keep going. down the line, or do we have?
We do
Oh,
Centennial
no,
Middle
yep,
School
yep.
travel so
All right.
that Brooke can lead.
In the spirit of mixing up this meeting, we're going to continue to mix it up. And we're going to go ahead with item O on our agenda, which is student travel requiring board approval. And we'll give that over to you, Wendy.
So Centennial Middle School is, you can come forward, Brooke. Centennial Middle School is requesting travel for their theater program to a very special auditioned, I'll let them explain all of the details of it, but it does kind of represent an exception in policy, except that we have talked about that when students are qualifying for something through a competitive measure, we have authorized our middle schools to travel to attend those competitions, in particular for science competitions and whatnot. And then the second piece of travel is for their trip to Boston, which is their traditional summer travel. So you guys want to give us an overview of how you ended up here, and then they can ask you all the questions.
Yeah, if it's okay, I'll have Melissa explain that part. She's our theater teacher and the director of our musical plays.
So we had a company invite us to audition for their middle school performance at the Lincoln Center in New York City this spring. So we were able to send in an audition and we were accepted, which is really exciting. The performance is in April, so the students would miss 3 days of school, but they would get to work with Broadway professionals. They would workshop with them, and then they would get to perform at the Lincoln Center in the Thule Hall, I think is the one that they're performing in, the Alice Thule Hall, and they would see a Broadway performance. But because of the rigor that our students are performing at, they're able to go to this and perform with these people, so.
And so to clarify one thing, the interesting thing about this is it's not like where it was a specific team of students who won. It's showing off the rigor of our program. So essentially the audition is just saying, yes, we are at a level high enough in our program that our students would be prepared to do the choreography and the vocal parts required to do this performance. So I know there were some questions about, well, how do we decide? A lot of our students who were in the play last year are no longer at Centennial. So it's not those kids, it's our program is a high enough level, essentially. And you can correct me if I'm wrong on that. But they have 2 guest soloists who are currently on Broadway. One is currently playing Aladdin on Broadway, and one is in Once Upon a Mattress. And then they have a Broadway choreographer and a Broadway director and producer who are all currently working on Broadway who run this program for them. So it's really cool. These students get to go not only to the Lincoln Center, but they're working with Broadway professionals who are currently acting on stage, who are going to be working with them and running them through this. And I believe they send us materials in advance, and then Melissa would work on that with the students. And you can
and we have to continue to prove that we are up to their level, and make sure we have to send them a recording a month before, and they will send us notes to make sure that we're still meeting their level when we go to workshop with them. So
I just was wondering how the students are selected, the 25 students.
Yeah, so we're going to run an audition process similar to what we would do for parts in our musicals. So our hope is that in the next few days we could put out information of what those requirements are and have students start to prepare a performance and a piece. And then our music teachers and theater teacher would help make those decisions. And we'd look at vocal parts and acting ability, choreography, things like that.
Is this a one-time thing?
That is a great question. I'm not sure about
Because
that.
I am concerned that this is a middle school thing, and it's very clear in our policy that middle school should not miss school, and I worry about missing 3 days of school for this. So Boston and DC, they're not missing any school for those things. So I'm okay approving those. This one I'm concerned about missing 3 days of school, even though it is a good opportunity. I just feel like this might be a slippery slope with, well, okay, we did it last year, let's do it again, and we just continue this. So I'm just throwing that out there. I don't know, board,
Yeah.
I have similar concerns. It's a long trip for middle school students, and missing 3 days of school is a lot, in my opinion.
It's possible that we could miss 2 days, but travel-wise, with a flight to New York, it's hard to get them there on time for the rehearsals. So they have to be there, I think, by 4:30 on Saturday to start rehearsals and things in New York City. So the program is actually Saturday through Tuesday, but because we're coming from Utah, we would likely have to fly out Friday. So, I mean, if we want to put kids on a red eye, we could do that and not miss school on Friday, but that's a possibility. With it being early out days on Friday, if our flight was at 9 p.m., they wouldn't necessarily miss that entire day to get up there, but then we're on a overnight flight.
American now flies out of Provo, and there's a 2 p.m., so maybe that could help us out. So, I understand those concerns, and I'm conflicted because I feel those too, and yet as a mother of a person who loves musical theater, I'm like, oh my goodness, opportunity to be with Broadway people,
I get
right?
that, but that's why we limit it to high school, though. Like, I don't know, like, this is where I'm torn because it looks like a great opportunity, but at the same time, do we need to have something, like, that's great that you guys were asked to audition for this and you got accepted, but maybe we have to be more specific in our policy that for middle school, invitations need to be vetted too. I don't know.
I do wonder, I mean, again, I know how much my kids would love to do something like this. I do wonder about, like, then you have a dance program that gets invited to do a thing, an art program, similar to what happened last year when we ended up with quite a few performing groups going to New York from our high schools. I guess that's the thing. Like, I understand, like, the honor of this. I think it's so spectacular to have that chance to go workshop like that. And I guess the question just is it setting a precedent that then is hard to sustain between both schools with equity so that, so that all of our programs are offering these types of experiences? And I don't know the answer, but it is something on my mind.
If I could just say, we allowed Science Bowl to go last year and they missed 2 days of school. And so are we putting science above performing arts? And is that focusing on a certain group of kids with certain opportunities that we're not offering? So I would just put out, if we're going to consider not doing it, then we need to say no to everything across the board, in my opinion. And we're just not going to travel middle school wise. So I just wonder if we've already started the slippery slope, and so we need to just make a decision one way or another, which I'm happy to support. But
that's a great point.
It does state in the bullet middle school travel that is a next level of an academic program within the school, such as an individual student or group that wins a competition. It is allowed.
Yeah.
So
okay.
And that's why I guess I'm just asking, is this a one-time thing, or is this like you guys want an audition to go do this, or is this something like the DC and Boston that we're expecting to go every year?
I think that's going to be up to direction from you guys, to be honest, and we will follow that of, is it something we want to try to do every year and see if we qualify, or do we want to say next year, let's come to a board meeting again if we get invited, and then maybe go through an approval process before the audition is out there? I'm not sure. I'm fine either way, to be honest.
Or in every other year so that every student would have one opportunity.
Well, and that portion of I can't find it on this form. I don't know exactly where you were reading from, Wendy, but
it's in the actual policy
It's in the policy 4006.
That specifies a competition, right? Because this was not technically a competition, it was an audition. I mean, are they different?
Again, I don't know. This is why I'm like asking, do we need to make things more clear in the policy? Or, I mean, when you bring up, the bowl, whatever it's called, the Science Bowl, is that an actual competition that they had to win to go to the next level?
It is, yeah. And
And from
that
what I
being
understand,
said,
that
I
gets
think
paid for too through that, like there was no cost to those students either, that they paid for them to go.
correct. Yeah, we paid for some of the chaperones, and we paid for one of the parents to go because we had a student with medical needs. But I think that in the performing arts world, auditions are equal to competitions in other worlds. So I think for a performing arts standpoint, it would be a competition because they're just very different in how they work.
True. I also think when you're invited to audition, that's a little bit different than she just sent in a tape and crossed her fingers and went, hope for the best. This is really somebody that's noticing something that's happening and saying, let's see if you can qualify and perform at this level. That indicates that the students are rising to that particular level.
And to Melissa's credit, we get a lot of accolades for our musical theater. I think if you've seen very many middle school level musical productions, the quality that she produces with students is amazing. And the fact that hundreds of students are involved and it's still that level of quality, I think is part of why they get recognition and that gets put out there, because it's pretty impressive to watch 100 7th graders on stage doing choreography and sounding good.
Could you give me a quick 30-second description of exactly what you had to submit? I'm interested to know, like, what exactly they looked at.
So we sent them just a recording of our musical from last year, and we chose one song that we felt showcased our students the best. So that, yeah.
Okay. Are there any more comments or questions?
I guess this doesn't really relate to their particular, but I would think that this is something that we need to talk about as a board, maybe for future, to add to this policy to really, because like we said, are we already on the slippery slope, or are we, like, where do we draw the line? Like, yes, this is an awesome activity, but do we just say, nope, middle school, sorry? Like, I don't want to be the bad guy. I'm just saying that, where do we draw that line? So.
I'm wondering if our student board members have any thoughts.
I feel like the performing arts should be held at the same standard as any other academic program. So saying that the science committee, they can all go and travel, but that their committee cannot, even though it's an invitation. And I still think that an audition is the same thing as a competition, because they were invited to do it, and with a competition, you are invited to go to that. So I feel like they should at least be considered, and I think that they should be able to go.
I agree. I think they should be able to go, but I also have the same concerns as board member Hall, and I do like the idea of not every year taking the trip if this is something that the board wants to pursue in the future, but like the every 2 years, because all students going through middle school will be there for at least 2 years, so they'll be able to go through. And I believe this does comply with the policy because, like Monica said, it's, in my opinion, audition is a competition.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions or comments?
I just want to make one comment, because as our meeting's running late, I might have to leave early. I may not be here for the vote. And so I just want to say that right now I would vote in favor of this.
Okay.
We will also have to make an adjustment to the fee schedule, so the soonest that we can do an approval will be at the end of September, because we will have to add this to the fee schedule, and it will require 2 meetings and 2 hearings.
Oh, are we not voting on it tonight? I'm
So-
sorry, did I get that wrong?
I think we're still voting on the actual travel,
Okay.
but we still have to go through the fee process. So
Yes,
we do
but
want them
it
to
would have
know
to
whether,
adjust the fee
yes, that is
schedule. Okay.
correct.
Okay. Any other comments or questions?
I
on
did
this?
also want to specify that we're very clear that the 2 school day limit is waived for those trips that are emanating from qualification in national competitions or prestigious invitationals, including but not limited to, and the superintendent must approve such travel exceptions. I love that when I'm stuck approving it. That's awesome.
Okay.
Anyway, just wanted to reference that policy for all of you.
Okay. I guess I just have a quick comment. I mean, when it comes to our voting later, I will probably vote in favor of this as well, but I think I am also in favor of maybe returning this to policy committee and taking it, because the fact that we're all so hesitant about this maybe says something that maybe we do need to really be a little bit more detailed in our policy. And so I think, given the way the policy is written now, I'm okay to vote yes on this later in the business meeting, but I do think maybe it's a good time to revisit that again, because we just redid it. But I think
That would be easy.
It's clear that maybe we're not, I don't know, we don't feel comfortable with the policy as written, maybe, so, okay.
Did you guys have any questions about Boston?
Same old, right?
Well, this would be our first year doing Boston, so Shoreline already
same old,
does.
yeah, right.
We would just be aligning with Shoreline, and I will add that in an election year that's already been kind of tumultuous, going to DC makes me a little bit nervous.
So it's a good time to go to Boston. Okay, any questions about the Boston trip?
I just wanted to thank you I noticed it's looking like it'll cost less than the trip you did last year, and thank you for working on that.
All right, sounds
And
good.
congratulations on being invited to this
Yeah.
opportunity. That's a big deal. Thank you.
And thank you for coming and sitting through this. We appreciate it, through our hesitation. Thank you for coming. Okay. Do we want to go ahead and go to item P, since we're on that topic? We kind of addressed it a little bit already, Wendy, but that's the student fee for Centennial Performing Arts.
Yeah, so Devin can help me with this. So we
Devin?
would have to add the student fee for Centennial Performing Arts. It would put it at that $2,000 mark as a specific travel fee. So our recommendation is that we would vote on the trip. If the trip is approved, then we would go ahead and add it to the fee schedule. Devin would go ahead and put that out, because we have to have 2 meetings for public comment, and then vote on it at probably our all-day meeting in September.
We'd have to do a business
We would have
portion
to
of
do a
that
business
meeting.
portion.
So,
So that
yeah,
they
but
could
we
get
could
that
put it
going.
on both meetings in September and notify parents through the parent notification system. Caleb?
Any quick questions or comments on item P, the student fee for Centennial Performing Arts? Okay. Do we have, it's 5:53. Do we have time to do any of these policies? Shall we table them all until the business meeting?
I would rather table them all, and I can do them really fast.
Okay.
I'm
All right.
super fast.
So why don't we go ahead and entertain a motion to adjourn our study session? We'll have a few minutes to take a quick break, and then we'll try to reconvene at 6 p.m. for the business meeting.
I'm wondering, first, can we table the item Q just to another meeting completely, like another day?
Yes, absolutely. That was one thing I was going to suggest once we got there.
Oh, okay.
But yes, we can do that brainstorming at a future meeting, and I think that's wise to do. So we can table that later when we get to that item on the agenda. I think that makes sense. Okay, is there a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn.
Okay, we are adjourned from our study session, and we'll try and reconvene again at 6 p.m. for the business meeting. That's in 6 minutes. Okay, I'm gonna go fast.